Well, the president of Mexico was at the White House today, calling President Obama's immigration executive order a, quote, act of justice and a very intelligent idea. Media reports talked about how border crossings are down and things are going very well, according to the MSM. While the polling still shows the majority of Americans do not like how this executive action unfolded. Joining me now, Laura Ingraham, the host of the nationally syndicated radio talk show, The Laura Ingraham Show, and Democratic Congressman Luis Gutierrez of Illinois. We begin tonight with Laura. All right, so the mainstream media reporting that it went great today, and both presidents are very pleased with this order. It's intelligent, and it's justice.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm not surprised that the president of Mexico is happy with what the president has done with this executive amnesty. I mean, I get it. I mean, he wants to relieve pressure from Mexico to have to deal with, obviously, their own issues with employment, low-wage workers. It's easier for Mexico not to have people repatriated back home who haven't been there in a while. And so for him, the executive amnesty is a good deal. I get that. I understand that completely. And it was interesting today, Megan, that the president actually said in his statement that the United States is going to be far more aggressive. He used the word aggressive at the border to make sure that people come here legally. I haven't heard him use the word aggressive before, but the proof will be in the pudding. Contrary to what they're saying, my sources are telling me that we are poised to have yet another series of waves of people coming into this country illegally when the weather gets a little bit more hospitable and perhaps when the springtime comes. So my sources are not saying that things are all hunky-dory in the border. To reduce levels, but still a real problem, especially for the American workers that need jobs and need wages that are going up.
But the Mexican president seems to be saying, look, I'll do everything I can to support this because I'm going to go back and I'm going to tell the Mexican people, don't start running across the U.S. border because this executive action only applies to a limited group of people. You had to be there before 2010 for this amount of time, and trying to tamp down beliefs that this executive order will apply to anybody who now has the idea of crossing the border and coming to the U.S.
Well, we know one thing, that the people who came over the last year or so, a lot of the teenagers and so forth, family units, we know, I think the last report was, I think you covered it, 96% of them have not shown up for immigration hearings. They're not going home. Contrary to what the president initially said, they're not going home. They're with their sponsors. They're soon going to be, they're already in public school and so forth. They're in their communities. They're not going home. So what is the message to Central America or Mexico or beyond if you want to come here illegally? Maybe you won't be getting the executive amnesty, maybe not, but you're not going to be deported. You're not going to be sent back home because if you can have a sponsor, if you can have a tie to a community, there'll be some congressman or senator or maybe the president himself who will say, oh, my goodness, we can't send people home. That would be callous. That's not justice. We have to keep people here. So I think as long as people know they're going to be able to stay once they get a toehold across the border, then we're going to have more people coming across the border. You almost can't blame them. I mean, you really can at this point.
The American people are still not behind the president's move on this. They wanted some sort of immigration reform, but they do not like the president handling this the way he did after he spent 6 years telling them he didn't have the authority to do it before he suddenly woke up one morning and said, oh, wait, yes, I do, and I'm doing it.
Well,
but
Megan,
does that even matter now? It's been done.
Well, what the people want, it doesn't really matter. I mean, when people say, well, the people want immigration reform, you have to slice that up a little bit, right? You can't just say immigration reform. That means different things to different people. So the last poll that was done, this is just of Republicans. Pat Caddell did it, EMC Research, about 4%, give or take, on the accuracy of the poll. But just among Republicans, let's take Republicans, 70% reported that they didn't want 1 penny of federal tax dollars going to implement the president's executive amnesty. 70%, Megan. That's a significant percentage. And last time I checked, other than maybe Luis Gutierrez, not many congressmen, certainly no senators that I know, campaigned on executive amnesty or for amnesty at all. They campaigned for this very generic idea of immigration reform, which is it's kind of a canard because, again, it means a lot of things to a lot of people. For me, it means having borders. having a country, having wages that actually go up for Americans and legal immigrants first, and having job opportunities. Then we'll be in a position to help a lot more countries and people all over the world, not just in Central America, but all over the world. But right now, people are hurting, and they want their government to represent them.
That word reform is vague at best. Laura, good to see you.
Great to see you.
And joining me now with more, Democratic Congressman Luis Gutierrez of Illinois. Congressman, good to see you tonight. And so you heard. Let's just start with that last point, that the American people are still not in favor of how this went through, and yet it happened. And I know that you've said recently you don't think it can be undone. Why not?
Well, I think the executive order of the President of the United States was not only the right thing to do, but I think it's constitutional. I think he has the authority. An authority, Megan, that was granted to him through the Congress of the United States. And so,
even though he said for 6 years he did not.
Well, but look, I can only say this. I argued with the president at this point, many others. He has wonderful attorneys. He has wonderful people that he has put, and I think Jay Johnson did a great job as Secretary of Homeland Security of putting together a package that he presented to the president. And I think he was convincing in that sense. So look, it's
must
done.
Have been, because he turned around 6 years of arguments by Barack Obama.
Here's all I'm going to say. It's done. I had an event.
It's done. That's my point. That's fine. Now, we don't need to rehash the authority, even though the president said for 6 years he didn't have it. That might be a sticking point for a lot of Americans.
I got it. Look, I think more and more Americans, as they learn about the program, are going to agree with the program. Now, I, in my district in Chicago, put an event together. 500 families came together. 1,300 people got ready. That was in one event on one Saturday. 1,300 more people got ready. You know who showed up? American citizen children introducing their parents, American citizen children introducing their moms and their dads, being united and being thankful with their siblings. We have a broken immigration system. We have 4 to 5 million American citizen children whose parents are undocumented. And here's what they're getting ready to do, Megan. They're getting ready to pay the government. I mean, come on. Laura knows better. She really does.
What do you make
if I could just get this in, because I think it's very, very important. She says, oh, the American people don't want $1 spent on the implementation. The American people won't spend $1 on the implementation because the Congress of the United States only authorizes the Department of Homeland Security to collect funds to pay for the implementation of the program. If the funding isn't there.
Let me just respond, just to add to what you're saying, because that's the problem for these Republicans on Capitol Hill who want to defund this executive action, is there may not be anything they can really defund, although Jeff Sessions in the Senate says there is. So we'll see as this Republican-controlled Senate goes forward.
But I think you and I can agree that you shouldn't make arguments about that it's the same old argument. The American people are paying. The American people, they're not paying. Who's paying for this are those people that are coming forward. They're going through a security background check. I think that's a good thing. That means 1,300 people that the government didn't know anything about on one Saturday morning said we're ready to pay so that we can pay for our fingerprints and we can go through a security background check and we can get right with the law. Look, it's a myth and a fantasy that you're going to deport 11 million people. So why don't we get them on the books? Our border is more secure today than it has been. There are fewer border crossings since 1970.
The Republicans say they would have gotten there with a comprehensive law if the president hadn't just taken his pen and done something he told us for 6 years he didn't have the authority to do. I got to go. Give you the quick last word.
Okay. Megan, two things. The president said he would do it if Congress refused to act. The Congress could have acted. I hope this Congress does act. I hope the next, and I hope that the next time, you know, we don't get like Laura Ingraham getting hurt in, and then you and I get a fight. Why don't just you and I fight? I think that's a fair newscast.
You know why? Because this is Fox News. We do fair and balanced. We do Laura Ingraham and Luis Gutierrez on Fox News.
Yeah, but I got to fight with you too.
So they get both viewpoints. Listen, do I challenge you about what you're saying about these families? No, I do not. But do I challenge you on this nonsense that President Obama, he said all along, I would only do it at the... That's bull. You know, for 6 years he said he didn't have the authority, and you know it because you were one of his biggest critics, and you believed all along that he did have. No, Megan, and you want me to come on your program the time that he had the authority.
You want me? I knew all the time he had the authority. And I won that argument.
No, you didn't.
No, then who won the argument, Laura?
He never came out and said I was persuaded. He never said that. He came out and said, I never said I didn't have the authority. That's what he wanted us to believe.
Can I just say one thing? We argued with this administration for years.
I know.
About
You've been
this
ideologically
specific
consistent.
issue.
But Barack Obama
and we
has
said,
not been.
Mr. President, you have, and
I
he
know.
used it,
I'm
and I
giving you
think
that
it's a
point. I gotta
wonderful
go.
thing that he used it.
I gotta go. Congressman
All right,
Gutierrez, it's
Megan.
good to see you.